I suggest we raise a little hell.
Dorian Gray is the sort of byword for beauty, isn't it?
The story really is quite a simple morality tale.
You're perfect.
What we've done is go inside the head of young Dorian, and hopefully he takes us on a journey.
This is not my true face.
A lot of people, I think, are familiar with that expression.
What are you? I am what you made me.
You know, if they see someone perennially gorgeous, doesn't seem to have aged, they say, you know, there's a portrait in her attic. But I think a lot of people aren't aware that it refers back to this.
I'm playing Dorian Gray, who we meet at the beginning of the film. He's been left a house in London, and the money of his and the estate of his grandfather, who's passed away, as of his parents. So he's a fairly sort of distressed soul, orphan character.
Dorian Gray comes to London in search of adventure, in possession of a fortune which he's inherited from his grandfather, and is befriended first by a painter called Basil, and then by a friend of Basil's called Henry.
Welcome to my little Hellfire Club.
He's spotted by Henry Wotton, who's a kind of brilliant, amoral scourge of society, as a sort of little keg of dynamite.
You are gentle.
In one.
No, don't.
A way of really causing a stir in society.
Dorian is corrupted through his good looks by Basil and Henry, or at least they introduce him to a world of wild parties and depravity.
And what happens is Dorian, early on in his relationship with Henry, is persuaded by Henry that youth and beauty are the most important things in the world.
You want to be good, don't you, Mr. Gray? And happy.
Isn't there a price to pay for that sort of business?
Oh, she's quite affordable.
And Dorian isn't even really conscious of being beautiful at that point. But Henry kind of makes him realise he is.
But what I was asking was about the effect on
On what?
well, on one's soul.
One's soul. This is my church. With this dram, right now, I nail my soul to the devil's altar.
Basil, I think, has a rather a pure delight in Dorian.
Do you have a cigarette?
Of course.
Henry's fascinated with it in a different way. He wants to mess with it. He wants to disrupt it.
Don't fear it, Dorian. The world is yours. For a season.
He wants to break it down. He wants to see this sort of phenomenon of beauty tarnished in some way.
He's got these looks which Henry knows people will die for, and literally do at a certain point. So it's as much about the rise of this boy through society under the tutelage of this fascinating, if Machiavellian figure.
You'll never meet a more eloquent philosopher of pure folly.
We then watch how he uses his power and how bad he becomes.
Come on. It's time we show you what we've made.
The portrait is painted of Dorian when he's in his absolute prime of innocence, is when he first comes to London.
Well, Basil, it's quite the best thing you've done. You'll be the talk of the town. Both of you.
The most important thing is when Dorian sees it for the first time. From that moment, in a way, he's changed. He loses his innocence.
Speak up, or you'll hurt his feelings.
Is that really how I look?
That's where the downward slope begins, because he has an objective view that he's handsome. He hasn't had that before, and it's damaging.
It's just so lifelike.
Better than life. You'll always look like that. You, Mr. Gray, I'm afraid, will not.
His innocence is shattered in a way. It's like when a child becomes conscious of their looks. It's an ugly moment, isn't it? Some people never get it, and they're very special people. I had no... You know, like me, I'm completely unaware of how truly beautiful I am. I'm told it all the time, but... You know, I've never seen it.
Some things are more precious because they don't last.
Poppycock. We wither and scar because the gods are cruel and hateful.
Or perhaps I should nail my soul to the devil's altar.
Remain as you are. Fair trade.
How about another gin instead?
All that hocus pocus Endless conjurations, books bound in infant skin, tentacles of fire, drinking the blood of virgins. Dorian wouldn't really barter his soul. Would you, Dorian? Would you?
Yes.
When the portrait is unveiled, Dorian is so taken with his own appearance, as if seeing himself for the first time, that he makes a wish that he can stay that way forever. And it will be the portrait instead which exhibits the scars, if you like, of sin. It's not just about the picture getting old. The picture really is his conscience.
Mr. Gray, I believe I know your secret.
So we've started him very naive, very vulnerable, very kind of open and earnest, but with his own sort of charm, which we then see kind of develop and be manipulated by, you know, the various characters he meets and by the situations he finds himself in and by ultimately his experiences.
The innocent country boy becomes first of all a dandy and then essentially a sociopath. And that is the story of Dorian Gray.
Chin up, dear boy. You've a face like a slap Nancy.
Are we shooting?
Excellent.
We're in Smithfield Market, we're in the old meat market, which is great, and it's supposed to be King's Cross Station. So they seem to have achieved by putting up signs saying platform 5 and shoving a lot of steam through it. But I think the sort of wrought iron and the shafts of light will give that sort of, you know, the feeling of a huge station. When Dorian moves to London, Victor collects him at the station, which is what we're shooting here, and Dorian at that point is just a young, virtually a country bumpkin. He's incredibly innocent.
Come on, son. Come on,
He's nearly picked up by a rent boy who he thinks is genuinely offering him some help. And Victor arrives in the nick of time and sweeps him off to the grand townhouse.
Looking for someone? Oh, yes,
Mr. Gray, welcome to London, sir. Well, today we've come to Carlton House Terrace. This is the house of Henry Wotton, played by Colin Firth. And the scene we're about to do is Dorian Gray just turning up on a lovely sunny day for all the joys of spring, only to hear that one of his best friends has been found brutally murdered. It's his reaction, all innocence, when we who've been following the film realise he committed the murder.
Good day, Lady Victoria. I was about to take Harry for lunch at Scott's. Why don't you join us?
Dorian, you haven't heard. I'm so sorry.
Beautiful Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost, just sitting right here, just off camera, which is why I'm sort of eyeing it up, I think, a little bit. I'm really excited. I get to drive it later on. I'm slightly scared. I signed the insurance papers this morning, but I think it's going to be great. Again, it's part of that status symbol. You know, it's iconic. You know, it kind of goes along with Dorian's character. You know, along with the threads and the flowing locks and the, you know, whatever else we can lay our hands on. We're making an earnest attempt to make it exciting and full of tension and dramatic and exciting, and not just a sort of wordy reappraisal of the novel. it's that kind of contrast of romance versus orgy and murder versus sensuality. So hopefully that contrast will be something that's very visually exciting.
Something which tries to flip our perceptions of beauty is fascinating.
It feels like it's plugged into something which is classical in the best way, in terms of it's got universal themes, but it's also got a real modern dimension too, in terms of the absolute obsession with the way you look.
It's tempting to make a sort of comparison with celebrity culture and the way you can be made by the media or made by publicity and then destroyed by it.
If you look at contemporary society, that kind of obsession with staying young, particularly in the celebrity world, which is essentially what Dorian is.
It's a tonal challenge to get right how dark you go. We want to take Dorian to some dark places, but we don't want to lose him forever.
I've done dreadful things, monstrous things, and there will be a price.
It's a horror. That's the genre that never dies.
It's about, how much you keep secret and what you've got in your attic. Horror movies love it. It's the same idea. Creeping upstairs to the terrible hidden room in the roof. Just loaded with symbolism.
How terrifying.